So today we are going to see about the exceptions. Okay. And what is an exception? Like predominantly you may have heard the word, right? Exception. What is actually it is all about? Or an error. You would have heard the word error, right? So what is it about?
How to ignore it is exception.
So the exceptions are like whenever you create your own program, there might be a negative edge case scenarios where you might not handle it, and that can come in either into two categories, which is your compile time exceptions. Another one is the runtime exceptions. So how can we identify whether that falls into these two category, and what are the possible ways to do that, and how can we can handle them is what the exceptions is all about. And there's also one more term called error, and also there's one more term called assertions. So have you ever heard about this assertions?
No.
Okay, so these assertions are a way for us to test the assumptions which we have for our logic created so far. So these are basically like, for example, if you have written if condition, if my x is, if x, I'm just giving x, so let it be like if only x5, or if it's 2, only if my condition satisfies, I will go into this block. So what I'll do is in my test case, so whenever you're writing a piece of code, we'll have the test cases. So all your positive, negative, all the edge case scenarios will be covered in this test cases. So what we assume is, if suppose my x value is 5, right? In that case, what I'll do is I'll hard code a value and say like assert. So here I'm just giving if and else block. So let's say here student score greater than 50. Else I'm giving one block. So I'll do every time assert dot equals student std 50. So in before this condition, I would have given assign some int value to my student value final. I'll just mock my data. So basically you mock your data of std and you pass that here and you say like whether my x is matching to the criteria. If so, my answer is true. If not, not. So basically all your assumptions can be checked using your test cases through these assertions. Okay, and what is exceptions? These are basically whenever you write a piece of code for that particular program, if anything unexpected thing happens, how to handle them and how to control your execution throughout your program. That is what we're going to see in this exceptions. So in this exceptions, there might be cases like which scenarios cannot be handled by developers. Like example, you have a memory of 2 GB, but you're exceeding the 2 GB memory and you're using like n number of programs getting executed simultaneously in your system, and your hardware is not ready to consume those programs, and it will give you an error like my memory is out. So out of memory, I'm out of memory right now, or my stack is full. Like, so whenever when your hardware related errors comes, or your data, your ram is crashed, right? So your data is crashed, so in that case you cannot handle that. So those all fall into this particular error criteria, and the one which can be handled at compile time and the other one which can be handled at the runtime are called as checked and unchecked exceptions. So checked exceptions are something you can check in the initial stage of your program and you can handle them, right? So those are basically your compile time exceptions, and something which you can't check at your runtime, like basically on your compile time, but you're able to predict that this happens on runtime, then those are unchecked exceptions. Okay. So these are checked and unchecked exceptions, and those are classified based on your compile time and runtime execution, which are handled by us. But something which we don't have control, which cannot be handled, falls into this particular error. The third one, as you heard about the object class, which is your topmost class in Java. Similar way, in our exception, we have something called throwable. Okay. So what is this? Let's explore that now. So if you see, this particular throwable is a class, okay? And this class has a hierarchy. Let me show that. So if you see, this particular error class is extending throwable, and the exception is also extending your throwable. So like your object class, all your child classes of that hierarchy, both error and exception, will have the throwable class as their parent class. So this is something you need to know. So in exception, the topmost class is throwable, and what it actually provides us. So this actually gives you an overloaded constructor of throwable, and then it gives you like print, stack trace, get cause, get message, and some other attributes, right? So why do we need this? So basically, before going into that, we need to know about few keywords, something called try, catch, finally, throws, and throw. Okay, so there are 5 keywords which we use when we come into handling our exception. Sorry. So what is try? So whenever you think that this piece of code can give me some kind of error, either at compile time or runtime, I wanted to handle those errors and exceptions, right? So that such piece of code has to be present within your try block. So basically the code which can give you exceptions have to be in your try block. What is catch? So whenever you get an error, you need to handle them, right? You need to catch them. So someone is throwing you a ball, someone should be at the other end to hold them, right? Same way, whatever piece of code you're trying to execute is throwing error have to be handled somewhere. And that handling is happening in the catch block, which is a method. Okay, this catch block which accepts an exception object. Okay, any type of exception object, and that piece of code can be handled here. Now, what is finally? So though you get your exceptions or though you do not get your exceptions, this particular block gets executed every time. Every time your code is getting executed, this particular finally block gets executed. It doesn't depend on whether your code is throwing an error or not, but this block executes every time. So whenever you're creating an object, you want to do some cleanup activities, such things can be done in the finally block. What is throws and what is throw? We'll come little later there. So let's first experience these 3 and see how does that work. So now let's say, what happens if I divide a value by 0? Can someone say?
Infinity will get.
Right, so let me try that. 1 divided by 0, and I'm printing that x. Okay, so this is a common error. You can't do anything, any calculation here. So I'm executing this. So what happened here? You got something called arithmetic exception. Okay, and that is extending what? A runtime exception. Okay, and that is again extending exception. So internally, this exception class follows a hierarchy. Okay, let me show that. So if you see, you have your throwable as a topmost class, and that is classified into error and exception. And then in the error, you have your stack overflow error, out of memory error, which are predominantly on your hardware related issues, right? So all those things will come into your error thing. And now if you observe here on the exception, they are classified into 2, runtime exception and an IO exception. And again, they have the subchilds, okay? So we you in this particular flow, in this diagram, you would have experienced this one, which is array index out of bound exception, which you have so far experienced, and a null pointer exception. So how do we classify them? Let's observe that. So now what happened? I got an arithmetic exception. So this arithmetic exception is coming into which category?
Under runtime.
Runtime. Why? Because when I executed, like till before execution, I didn't get any compile errors, right? Though I write 1 by 0, did I get any compile error, like some red sign indication on my screen? No, right? So this was not a compile time error. This is something happened on runtime. What if I give something on compile time? Then that becomes into your compile time exceptions. So right now what you observed is runtime exception. So how can I handle this? So now I know this piece of code is giving me an exception. So what should I do now? This piece of code should be written in which block? Right. Code which Yeah. So in the try block, you need to place your piece of code. Okay. Now how to handle this? For that, what block do we need to use?
Catch.
Catch, and which accepts you an exception argument. And now in that, let me use this object. So this exception class gives us few methods which we can use. So this is again an overloaded constructor which can accept a default, a parameterized with few other parameters. Okay. And now this is again extending what? Throwable. So here, what are the methods I have? I have, say, get message. I have something called get stack trace, and I got something called print stack trace. Okay. So let's experiment one by one. So now I'm going to say e dot get message. So what it will give me is, it will just print me the message alone. Okay. So let's try to run this. This time I'm not able to get any error because my piece of code has been within this block of code which is handled here. So let me just print this. So what happened? You got a message stating the exception is because of by 0. Okay, you just got a message. If I need to understand in which line was that error happened, is it on line number 8 or is it line number 9? What is the actual place you got this error, right? Because when you write like 100 lines of code, you never knew where your error is actually got triggered. Right now you have only main method and you're having only one line of code, it's okay. But when you're writing like 2 to 3 files and you're connecting all the files with your methods and objects and everything, you never knew where actually your object, the error got triggered and where it is finally ended up. So to know the complete stack, right? So where it started and where it ended, what was the class name, what was the method name, which line it got executed, and what was the error happened there. To get a complete detailed history of your exception, we have something called print stack trace. Okay. This one will give you complete stack is nothing but from in to out, the complete detailed information about your exception. So if I print right now this one, let's execute again. So if you see, earlier we just got a message, right? So this was your message. Now you got a detailed description. It's an arithmetic exception, which is happening in the line number 8. So this is my line number 8 and here it is happening. So it gave me a complete history of my exception. So this is what one of the other method we use whenever we wanted to know what kind of exception we got and how to use it. But when you start writing live programs, we avoid this print stack trace. We just use only the get message or relevant error messages and codes, but we never go with print stack trace because it will abruptly end your program. Or if you're having like a huge connections of 10 to 12 files, it will throw you a log of like 100 like 10 to 15 lines in your log. So if the same error is happening for 10 times or 20 times, that many log will be printed, which is like creates a noise whenever you are executing a major application. So it's always better to avoid print stack trace in the lively applications. But whenever you're developing and whenever you're creating few programs or logics, you want to identify the number of exceptions you can handle. In that case, in the initial development phase, we can have this. But once your code is actually going live, we'll clear out all these kind of stuffs and we make it more generic program so that we never get a noise in our logs. So this is one of the way. So till now, any questions in this try block and catch block?
So this catch is like we don't want to abandon the code, but we want to just proceed, right? So whatever we want, we will just give inside the catch actually. Right?
Right now, we are not proceeding. If you want to proceed, we can still do that. Okay, so we can just return something here itself, like just return my program and end my program or break my program. Though I get exception, I can go and continue with. I'm just handling it. So what happens? The flow will not be stopped. That is what the catch block does for you. Something
So if I have the next,
Yeah, Jen.
If I have the next line of code, so that will be keep on executing, right? In case if you're printing like 4 more lines after catch block, if you have some sys out or something to be printed, that will be executed, right?
Yeah, we'll see that now. Till now, we'll see that also now. What happens if you write a piece of code between try and catch? What happens if you write before and after? We'll do all those experiments right now. But till now, with this block, you have any queries or any suggestions or improvements or any doubts so far in this? These are all keywords, so you have to use it if you are feeling that your piece of code can give you an error, right? Then you have to use this construction or a block, which is a template for us to use. If not, I'll go with the next one. So as you asked, let me first try giving here. I'm just trying system.out.println hello. Okay, so what is the right now you see? Are you seeing a compile time issue or a runtime issue? I just added a sysout between my try block and the catch block. What happened? You're seeing some red lines, right? So what did you see here? A catch or finally is expected. So whenever you're going with try and catch, you should never segregate them between any piece of code or logic between them. It should always be sequential. If you interrupt this try and catch block with some piece of code, it will give you a compile time error. So anytime you're trying to have a piece of code, don't give it in this way. Okay, so always have the try and catch together. This is one way. Now let's have one more thing. I'm just commenting this one. Now this time I say string s equal to null. Okay, so I defined as yes, null. What I'm doing right now is I'm just taking s dot length. Okay, so this time I'm just having a piece of code. This is there's no compile time issues, so I'm trying to execute it. So what is the error you received this time? You see a null pointer exception. So right now my object s is having nothing, it's just null. On top of a null object, if I'm using some kind of operation or a method to perform some activity, this will not be able to do because this is not holding any kind of data, it's empty. And if you're doing some operation on an empty thing, it will end up with an exception which the system cannot be handling it. So for that purpose, again, what should we do now? This piece of code should be written into your try block, right? Now I just handle the try block. But if I'm not having my catch block, this is again a compile time error. So you can't have your try alone. So let's say now I know there's an exception gonna come here. So let me have only my catch block. So I'm just having my catch block. Even then it will tell you that catch without try. So let's say I have finally. So let's have finally alone here. So what happened? Even now we'll say finally without try. So whenever you're gonna use them independently, either try or catch or finally, you'll always get a compile time error. So you can either use them in the possibilities of try plus catch or try plus finally or try plus catch plus finally. So these are the possible combinations and you can't interrupt them between any piece of code. It should be together in sequential flow. If you write any piece of code in between them, that will actually give you a compile time error. So now we need to have our try block and here let me have finally and let me say that initialize my s equal to So what is the issue right now? Can someone say what is the issue here in the finally block? Can someone say what is it? Didn't get you. Didn't get you, Divya. Can you tell again?
You are assigning a value in finally block.
Yeah, I'm assigning a value, but why it's showing me an error here?
Can you click the error?
Declare the
I
variable.
won't click the error. You try to guess it. That is the reason I'm asking you guys. Are you
We
able
didn't
to guess
declare
something?
that. Declare that variable.
Declare that variable within which block?
Finally block.
Okay. So the thing is, whenever you're using some kind of variables in either in your try, and if you want to use them either in your catch block or finally block, that has to be declared globally and not locally, because this scope is local. And when you're trying to use that in finally, you cannot actually handle that value. So to do that, whenever you're going to a try block, always have your initialization outside your try block. Okay. And unless you wanted to have an additional orchestration logic on top of this and you wanted to assign some S with some other new value, then you can use that S. So right now, if I'm using S over here, it's not doing anything. Right? So your initialization has to happen outside your try block and catch block if you're going to use that variable in your further blocks. So that is one of the common error which we might expect anytime when we do programming. So this is one of the ways. So what I'm doing is every time when I'm getting a null pointer exception, finally I'm assigning my S with some value. That's it. I'm not doing anything else. So let me run that. I still get null pointer exception because I haven't handled that exception anywhere. I'm just directly doing an operation. So I need a cache block. And now here, let me print my stack trace and so what I'm doing is basically whenever I'm getting an exception, I'm handling it, but on top of that, I'm returning an S with a default value so that whoever are dependent on this particular S value can go ahead with this default value instead of getting the actual value. So here, instead of getting the actual length, I can give like 3 as my default, or if I want to default it, I can give it as just 0, so that if this is within a program, let's say private string written length and passing the string S. So for every function, you need to have your written, and I'm returning my S. I'm writing the main. Sorry. So now let me call this method from my main object. So I'm just giving null. So what I'm doing is I'm passing a null object. I know I'm just going to do a length operation, but I still know if I apply some operation on top of my null object will go into exception, but I need to return something here, right? So I'm giving string S equal to, and I'm just printing it. Now let me execute it. So what happened here, though I get my stack trace here, I'm internally returning my value with 0 so that this particular piece of code will not be a hindrance for my further execution of my program. So what I'm doing is I'm defaulting the S with 0. And if I comment it out, so here, if I'm not handling any stack trace or any logs, what happens as an end user, you might not know what was the error. You still get a value of 0. So you're suppressing your exception. You know there's an exception going to come here on top of null if you're not handling it. In that case, I'm suppressing that exception and returning with some default value in my finally block. So what happens in finally, though you handle it what happens? You're actually giving some default value in your finally block, and this gets executed every time you get exception or every time you don't get your exception. So this block is like every time it happens. So there's a difference between final keyword and finally keyword. So final keyword is something you are making a constant throughout your program execution to your class or to your method or to your variable. Whereas this finally is a block which can be explicitly used only with your try and catch a block and not with anything else. Okay. So till now, any questions? Why are we using this catch a block? Basically to suppress your exceptions and just go with your happy flow of execution. Okay. So now, you know, this is a null pointer exception, but why should I use my top class exception here? This is my parent class, right? I should be having my child class null pointer exception, right? I have my null pointer exception here. So if you're pretty sure that you're going to get this type of exception in this scenario, I would always say to use the relevant exception there. Or if you are sure you're going to get null pointer exception, just go ahead with null pointer exception. What if I use exception as my top class? Any kind of exceptions apart from null pointer, any exceptions on top of that on the hierarchy, if you have, everything will be suppressed in that particular flow, and you will not be able to triage that issue if you are not having a proper error handling system. So always it's a better to have the stack trace in the initial phase of development to understand what is the error over there. And if suppose you're not getting the null pointer exception and you're getting some other exception in that case, then you'll be able to handle that as part of this exceptions. So how can I handle multiple exceptions in my cache block? Is it fine if I have one cache block, or is it fine if I have multiple cache blocks? So now I have one more cache block, and let's say this is having, say, exception, which is topmost class, right? So I'm having my exception, and I'm just printing system dot out dot println e dot print status. Let me just have this e dot print status. Okay, so now I have two catch blocks, right? One with null pointer exception and one with this exception. So to know like which block is getting executed, let me have this out. Okay, so which block will actually it goes in to a null pointer or exception, or it will have some other kind of exception? Let's see that. So what happened here? Which block did it go now?
Null pointer.
It went to null point.
Null pointer exception. Why? Because this is my topmost class, right? Now let me just change it.
But Sneha, why we are getting another exception also?
Yeah, basically you're now learning about how to handle multiple cache blocks in the same piece of code. If you're getting a null pointer exception, you're getting an arithmetic exception, and you're getting on top of that array index out of bound exception, right? But you're handling only null pointer exception. Now let me have a scenario of your arithmetic exception int x equal to 1 divided by 0. And let me print that here. So now you know you will get two exceptions. One is arithmetic, another one is null pointer. But here I have only two kind of exceptions handled. One is null pointer, another one is exception. So which block should it get executed? Will it get executed both, or it will just stop with null pointer, or it will just go into the exception? We'll see that right now. So what happened here for you?
First it went to null pointer exception.
So you got a null pointer exception here. And after that, you're actually planning to use this piece of code to be executed. But this is not within again a try block, which is in a single try block. But you are predicting this line is giving an error. But if you get this error, this is handled in this particular piece of code. But this piece of code, line number 27 and 28, is not handled explicitly again in any other try block, so that your piece of code will get failed to execute, though you handle them explicitly in a separate cache block. So what you can do is within the try block, you can have one more try block. And here, let's have the exception, which gives me arithmetic exception. Now let me execute it. Okay. So within the single try block, I'm having multiple try catch blocks, and for each I'm having its own exception handling there. And the common catch block. Okay. Now let me execute it.
Sneha, previous one you had a try inside the try, right? So in that case also it went for only null pointer exception, right? Not this one. Like previously you had a try inside. Okay.
Yeah, there was a mistake I did, so I didn't handle it properly. So if you see right now, you get your execution happen for both your exceptions, for your null pointer and for your arithmetic exception also. And post that, you're able to execute your finally block, and post that you're able to see your cache exceptions, which handled in the sequential flow. So whenever you're writing a piece of code, you might not be sure that this piece of line will give you one kind of exception and another piece can give you a different kind of exception. But still, you don't want to interrupt the flow. If suppose you're having a length and you're going to return this length, and if you want to execute it, you can have n number of methods separately sliced. But what is the use of slicing it? So in that case, you're dependent on this value. And if this particular is giving you an exception, now in this case, I'm dependent on my S value, right? So instead of having my one value, I'm dependent on my S length value. So what will I do if I'm getting an exception? Post that, I'll get in this finally block, I'll return the S with 0. And then I'll go ahead with this method. In that case, my S will not throw any exception. And this will actually print my X value. So you can actually create a chain of exception handling within your block to avoid the exceptions happening in your runtime. Because all are runtime exceptions. Null pointers again, which is going into your runtime exception. And you also have your arithmetic exception, which is also extending your runtime exception parent class. So they both fall into the same hierarchy, right? So how can I chain them in a single cache block? Right now, I'm creating separate try catch, and I'm doing it. What if I have a dependency on this S dot length, and based on that, I'm doing this calculation? In that case, do I need to have the separate independency?
Sneha?
Yes, Divya.
This increases the number of lines, right? Number of lines of code. Is it a good way of practice?
Yes, a good question. The thing is, this is not a good practice, but you can still handle them if you're not having a dependency on your previous inputs. So right now, my S dot length is not dependent anywhere in the next piece of code. That is the reason I was handling it independently. But if you want to suppress that exception, you need to do this in this way. But if you have a dependency on this value, and let's say now, so now after this S, if I want to avoid my null pointer, what I can do is I can do a null check if S not equal to null. Only then get my S dot length. And in that case, what happens? Only if it is not equal to null, I'm going to do this. But even then I'll get this arithmetic exception. So there's a dependency created between these two. So one way you can handle your null pointer exception is by giving a check. So only then this if condition satisfies, it goes in. Otherwise it won't go in. So though you pass null, you're actually suppressing your exception by handling it. This is one of the way to handle through code. Now, if you see right now I have only one try catch block. So let me remove this. So I'm going to return a string. So let me return this as int and have my x. So since I'm using primitive, it will be defaulted with the relevant value. So though I don't have any dependency to normalize it in my finally block because it has a defaulted value. Now here we have int, and now let's execute. So what happened here? So you are actually passing a null and you're checking it whether your s, sorry, this I didn't check it out. Okay. So now you are passing null, but even you pass null, I'm handling it in my piece of code so that I'm avoiding the null pointer exception. And suppose that if I do this, what happened? The s dot length is, it won't come into this piece of code itself, right? So what happened? Finally, your x got returned with 0. So there is no chance you'll get an arithmetic exception. Say now here if I'm passing some string. So now I'll be able to get an arithmetic exception. Right? Because my data is not null, I'm going in, but this will throw me a runtime exception and I'm handling that. And I'm not suppressing anything. I'm just leaving it aside, same way. So if I want to handle this again, like instead of doing this, if I don't want to go ahead with this, in that case, I can give one more constraint on my denominator value and I can avoid this constraint. Since this is a hard-coded value, I can make it. But in runtime, you never knew what value you get for your y and what value you get for your numerator, which is runtime activity. In that case, you need to handle your block. So in that case, what you can do is, though you're getting these exceptions, you can suppress it and finally pass your s with a default value of 0 so that it won't actually avoid the relevant program which is going further on your sequential programming way. In this way, you can suppress it. The question which Divya asked, like, is it fine to have multiple try-catch blocks? It is fine unless you are not dependent on your input which you are receiving from your existing line piece of code, right? If you're not dependent, it's okay to suppress and handle your cache blocks. But if you are dependent, try to handle that particular exception and then come to a next line. Otherwise, you might get into a failure where you will not be able to get your length itself because your s itself null. So always we need to handle such kind of exceptions in prior if you are aware of those errors which can happen in runtime. Because for test data, like if you give a positive string value or if you're just giving an empty value, you still have some length in your string. But if you're passing it as null, you'll get a null pointer exception because it's an object. Whereas in your primitive types, you never get this issue because this will have defaulted values. So that is the reason when it comes to your objects, you'll have multiple exceptions coming into picture. So is Divya, are you okay with the understanding or you still have questions?
No, Sneha. One more question, Sneha.
Yeah.